Hi everyone, welcome back to another of our mental health minis. They're going quite well. Hopefully you've seen some of the others, and you'll know that normally we like to talk to public figures in and around the sporting arena about their mental health challenges, but I wanted to do something slightly different today. I'm talking to a friend of mine, Courtney Patrick. Hi Courtney.
Hello.
So Courtney currently lives in the United States, but we met when she was over here as a Rotarian. But she has been through a number of, I won't say challenges, but a number of different things in her life that a lot of people probably wouldn't have gone through, and I think can offer a unique perspective on mental health. So I wanted to have a chat with her and sort of get her experiences, how she deals with it, and she's also been responsible for giving me a lot of positivity throughout the time that we've known each other. So, as I say, Courtney, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. Mental health is super important to me. As you mentioned, I've been through a lot of change and a lot of different aspects of my life. So you definitely have like the peaks and troughs of it. So happy to share whatever I can.
What time is it over there?
It is 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and I have just been painting some furniture. So that gives you a little bit of context of how I use my Sunday in the sun.
So for those watching, a couple of things about Courtney. She had a scholarship, came over here where she didn't really know anyone, and met her now husband. So obviously, and then decided to stay over here, which obviously is a challenge. And then she's just decided to move back, and in amongst all this, decided to start her own business during the pandemic. So as we say, a number of challenges. So as I say, Courtney, I'm going to let you run with it as I do with all of these. Talk to me about your experiences, your mental health.
Cool. Well, I always like to give context and say, I think most of us that have struggled with mental health in some capacity, which I'm going to put my finger in there and say, I think is all of us. And maybe some of us just aren't aware that it is a mental health issue that we might be struggling through. I always spent the majority of my youth pretty carefree. And I think the first time that I remember having like what I now know is anxiety was probably my senior year of high school. So in the United States, it would have been when I was 18, it would have been the equivalent of like your last year of college in the UK. And I think that's when the tides turn because everybody starts asking you the question, what are you going to do now? What's next? What do you want to do with the rest of your life? And there's a lot more pressure that gets put on you from that stage. And for me, I think it was this constant sense of nervousness or worry, but I didn't realize that that wasn't, I'm going to put in quotes normal because normal is different for every single person. And then that kind of transpired over time. And I should say, I think, one of the first moments of my life, I always called it like your mid-20s crisis. And I had just left the UK for the first time. I had a boyfriend that lived in England and I was living in America because my visa expired. And I came back home and it was time for me to get serious. And I just really struggled with figuring out where I wanted to go in my career. And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves, definitely at that stage of life, to go, well, now I have to have everything figured out. And all these people, I should be making a lot of money. I should have a great job. And the reality of anything is you just got to use what you can with the resources that you have, which I think is a story that comes sort of longer along that journey. So I'll fast forward from there to the first time that I really struggled with depression. And that was when I first moved to the UK from a permanent perspective. So my husband and I got married, and I was super adventurous, and I had lived in the UK and I studied, which I soon found out was a completely different experience than working and trying to live somewhere and truly integrate. Because I think when you come into somewhere as a visitor, you have a visitor's mentality, and you don't really look at the negatives. Sure, you experience homesickness and things like that, but everything's an adventure. And I think when you live somewhere, when you work somewhere, not to put like a complete negative experience on the work environment, but you work 5 days a week, you put most of your time into your work, and you don't really have the freedom that you did when you were younger to like go to a coffee shop at 10 a.m. if that's your thing, or go for a hike on a Wednesday. You're kind of stuck with these predetermined windows. And for me, that was such a challenge to come into this new phase of life because I think the key thing is understanding what you value and what's important. And I had this real sense of like, I'm going to put everything on this job. I'm going to find friends on this job. I'm going to find happiness on this job. This job is what's going to make me feel good as an individual when I'm setting my life up in this new place. And, the reality is you can't put all of this pressure on one particular thing. And I struggled with, again, it's like you constantly learn. What I now know is imposter syndrome. And I felt like an imposter in the UK because obviously here I was, this Louisiana girl who got transplanted into Birmingham, which is out of all the cities, I know Birmingham has such a diverse mix, but it is full of a lot of locals, unlike somewhere like London, where everybody kind of moves to there. So that was a real dynamic where, from a personal perspective, I was just so conscious of how everything that I did was different. And it's not a British thing. It's something that I've learned happens everywhere around the world. When someone's different, it's part of our nature to point out the things that they say. And you might do it as a funny jest to be like, wow, you say that word weird. But if somebody's really struggling internally and they're not confident in themselves, they're questioning themselves, man, that's like a dagger straight to the heart, because you're just like, gosh darn it, I'm trying so hard to integrate myself. And now I've just said this word wrong. I've said water instead of water, and nobody can understand me. And it's like, you've got that element of it. But I think like the bigger theme is imposter syndrome, specifically in the work environment, which I know a lot of people suffer from. It's like having this, that angel and devil on your shoulder. It's like that devil is constantly telling you, you're not good enough. You're not allowed to be here. You can't sit at the table with these people. And so it's like this running dynamic that goes through your head constantly, that makes you just criticize yourself, but then your automatic subconscious thought is, well, everybody else is also feeling that way about me. And it's crazy when I look back and reflect on my time in England, which is weird even saying my time in England because it's done. I'm still not like completely wrapped around it. Um, but I wasted a lot of time when I could have been enjoying myself in this new country, in this new opportunity and experience, kind of holding on to home and thinking, well, I don't like it here and things would be greener on the other side, because I let myself get consumed with the negativity and to say, well, there's no coming out of this. So I'm just going to have all these negative thoughts and let them stew and render, and I'm not going to let myself come out of it. And there was like a real changing point, and there's was lots of ebbs and flows which come in that journey. But 2020 was, I think, we're all going to look back and be like, what did the pandemic do for us? I really hope that everybody can find the positive. I had like a full-on emotional breakdown. I had left a job that I had just started, and it just wasn't the right place. And I was really suffering with my mental health. I was trying to cope in a situation and make myself as a square peg fit in a circle hole. And I think you have to be aware that not everywhere is meant for you, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a weak person. It means that you're aware of yourself enough to go beyond that. But of course, when you're going through that, you just can't see that outlook. And made a really risky decision to go off and freelance and start my own business. And hey, what do you know? A week after I put my notice in, the global pandemic and the lockdown happened. And I had never spent so much time with myself. And I mean, my husband used to make jokes and he's like, when are you going to calm down? Like the purpose of this time is to like be locked in the house and chill out. And I could not cope. I had to constantly have an activity. It's like I couldn't deal with not having that 8 hours a day. And So I actually, from my mom, she had been listening to this motivational speaker from Texas who could be more Texan if she tried. And I think my mom's point was like, hey, her accent's really cute, but why don't you just check her out? And her name's Terry Salvo-Foy. And I started listening to some podcasts. So I would go for these like long 3 mile walks. And um, I I can't even tell you how much it changed my outlook to start listening to a motivational speaker or somebody that just kind of gave some clarity and some wisdom during this time and some real, positive words to go. Nothing has to be perfect. We are not a result of our circumstances. We're a result of the decisions that we make as individuals. And so your only focus is not about focusing on how terrible everything's around you, because if you're looking for the negative, it's gonna be there. If you're looking for somebody to criticize you or for something to go wrong, guess what? That's around the corner. We have no control over our external environment, but we do have control of ourselves. And I kind of created this hunger and this reaffirmation for myself of just diving into motivational content. And that line of don't let your circumstances control you, control what you can, your decisions. That was kind of the thing that fueled the fire for me and really changed my outlook on all of this, because it's like it made it go from here's a million things that I can't grasp my mind around that's giving me anxiety, to here's 3 things that I can do today that I know that I can accomplish and tick off of my to-do list, and that will make a positive impact on me and my day and my outlook and my mind. And I wish, when I look back at that girl that had moved here, and that girl starting a job, and that girl having a mid-20s crisis, and that girl, graduating high school, going on to college, I wish that I would have had that clarity of mind to go, all I can do is control the things that I can control. And that's my decisions. That's me. And because it would have made a lot of this feel a lot simpler, and it stops you from being paralyzed by all the noise and the chaos. And it gives you this really clear path of what you can go on to. And so that's really been the glue that's held everything together for me through all of this change, because starting a business in the pandemic and doing all these things that felt different, I stopped looking at it from the perspective of like, oh my God, coronavirus is happening and there's nothing that I'm starting a business, this is going to fail too. Today, my focus is I'm going to do 3 posts on LinkedIn for the week, and I'm going to email back my clients. And it's like, looking back on it, I made it through. We weren't rolling in the money, but we paid the bills, and that's enough to get by. I made it through a global pandemic, and now I'm in America, and I've got a great job that would have never, that would have never happened if I had just said, okay, the world's locked down. Now I'm going to worry about everything. It was just like these little steps. And I just had a mentoring call with somebody the other day, which is, to me, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a book, whether it's a person, whether it's an email, you've got to start giving yourself guidance and positive thinking, positive content to help guide you and shape you. Because as I said, the world is full of negative, but you got to have that sense check to go, hey, there's still a lot of good happening, and I can control this. I can make it through the clutter. And we were talking about, right now I'm in this phase of my life, which is still a transition. I just moved back to the US, and I've got a job. I'm still sort of tailoring off some of my stuff that when I own my own business in the UK, that's still kind of trucking along on the side. But my focus now is building this career in what I would have considered my dream job before I came here. But I'm kind of aggravated because not everything's happening at the exact time that I want it to. And she was like, there's a difference between mindless wandering and a journey. And she's like, you just got to have that vision in the back of your head. You got to have the destination. But she's like, even if you feel like you're wandering, as long as that destination's marked out, that's fine. When it's mindless is when you're just allowing the world to take you on all of these different avenues and you're not controlling any aspect of it. And So it kind of goes back to that whole piece of what can you control? And that's super helpful. I think for even a moment, I was taking some like cognitive behavioral therapy through the NHS, which is free. And for any of you that struggle with anxiety, I highly recommend you talk with your GP about that, because man, the free resources on the NHS, I now live in a place where we have to pay for healthcare. So use those and maximize them. Again, a lot of CBT is about what can I control, and not allowing all these intrusive thoughts to just let you mindlessly wander. You know, you do have some element of control over it. So hopefully that wasn't a wandering topic there, but that's kind of my snapshot of mental health,
No,
my journey. And there's a lot of peaks and troughs in the middle.
like you say, you've had some incredible highs, obviously. I mean, and sometimes they're kind of the same thing. I mean, moving from the US to the UK is both, for you, it was an amazing achievement and wonderful experience, but also you moved to a place where you didn't know anyone. So like it comes with the territory that both are both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to bring up, especially, is you talk a lot, both on this call, you've mentioned it, and sort of outside, is about positivity. Courtney sends out an email every Monday called Monday Motivation. And one of the things that this made me realize is it doesn't always matter about the stories that are contained in this email. Some people will want a massive epiphany to get their week going or something. I find occasionally, and it sounds really kind of like sycophantic almost, that just getting the email that says Monday Motivation is sometimes enough to make me go, I need to get on with my week. And it's enough to pick me up and be positive, just the title of the email sometimes. So it's quite interesting that at different points of your life and in different times of the day, different things can sort of get you going. And you've had moments where you've needed something a real oomph to get going. And we've also spoken about, you've woken up, Tom said hello to you, and that's been enough to get to start your day. So it can vary massively, what can get you going in the day.
Totally. I think it's back to this thing. I think most of us were aware before 2020 of like that the world is full of negativity. I mean, gosh, how often do you start having a conversation with a friend and it so quickly trickles into like talking about all the things that are going wrong? It's like this, you know, like, let me tell you about all the things that I have that are stressful. No, let me tell you about mine. Or let's talk about our coworker that we don't like. It's super easy to go there. But then when something like a global pandemic happens and you're locked down in your house and you have literally very little to stimulate you, you can really get kind of trapped in the fear. I think for a lot of people, I mean, for me, it was, okay, how do I balance this? Because I can't keep living just waiting for the next Boris Johnson announcement on when we're going to be able to leave our house. Come to find out, we're never going to leave our house. Obviously, that wasn't the reality, but it did feel like that at
Yeah.
times. And you have to have that external source. I read a book by Gretchen Rubin, who created the Happiness Project, and something that she brings up very loosely in that book, but she wrote an entire other book called Better Than Before, I believe, which is about habits. And she said, you know, all of us have different drivers. Some of us are good enough with our habits to be able to drive them on our own. So if we don't need external accountability, if we say in our diary, this is what I'm going to do today, that's what you're going to do today. Majority of people need accountability of some sort, and I'm one of those people, 100%. So I was allowing myself to kind of walk down that path, and clearly that wasn't working because I was letting depression and anxiety and imposter syndrome and a lot of different things guide me, even though, and I will add this, on the surface, people always go, I would never guess that you struggled with those things unless I'm talking to you about them. You know, even the happiest, most positive, most energetic and bubbly person can be experiencing that. So that's probably another side point. But having that accountability for these podcasts and these books, and I mean, these are motivational speakers that I might not ever have the opportunity to go see in person. But it felt like when I was having them in my earphones that it was another person there saying, hey, you could do this. This is, you know, this is my story. This is your story. This is everybody's story. The day will go on. And that's where Monday Motivation was born from, because the more that I read, the more that I could feel my outlook change. And my husband saw it, my friends saw it, and they were like, hey, what are you doing? What are you reading? And I'm like, let me tell you about it. It's changed my life. And so Monday Motivation has transpired from that, I will say. And this is like all in this story. We've had a little bit of a hiatus. And again, another great piece of advice that I've gotten is the key to success is about protecting your energy and recognizing when you can't give anymore, because what you're constantly having to do is make sure that you don't completely deplete yourself. And so during this phase, I mentioned briefly I'm painting furniture. Well, I've just started a new job. We're applying for my husband's green card, and I'm moving into a place that I only signed for 2 weeks ago. And I got a lot of furniture to paint. I got a lot of boxes to pack. And it's like, yes, could I do Monday Motivation? Absolutely. Would it probably deplete me more than where I am? Yeah. And so I'm super mindful of going, it's also okay to protect yourself and protect your energy and only invest in the things that are going to give you what you need to get by. Nothing is out there saying you have to constantly give to other people. So have that accountability factor, whether it's an email, whether it's a podcast, etc. But also make sure that you're constantly protecting your energy and your resources. And when you are feeling super low, don't overly give yourself. So Monday Motivation will return. I'm moving to my new place next week and it'll be right back in action. But I don't feel any guilt or remorse over giving myself that break, because again, one thing I've learned is don't let yourself get to rock bottom, because it takes a lot more to get back up.
I think you mentioned something just at the tail end of that, in the fact that it's okay to take a break. Pardon me, sorry, take a break from all this. And I think that there's we talk in mental health stigma. I'm conscious about time because I always want to keep these short. But to kind of wrap up, we always talk about the stigma of mental health, and it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to talk. And the idea is that if someone is low, if someone is feeling depressed, it has depression, if someone is stressed or anxious or whatever their feeling is, whatever their mental health problem is at that moment, it's always seek help, get help. But sometimes it's themselves as well. They like, you need to give them the tools. I mean, there's the old adage about give a man a fish he can eat for a day, teach a man to fish he can eat for the rest of his life. But it's, yes, you need help, you need other people to pick you up at times, but you've also got to look after yourself. And a lot of the times I see there are people that genuinely struggle for no obvious external reason, but there are people like myself who get to a point where we've done so much for other people. I'm my friends will say I'm notorious for looking after others and not caring about myself, and that's when I get really bad. And I know, Courtney, we've spoken about the same. You got to points where it's like, I just need to stop for a moment. So
Absolutely.
absolutely right. So Courtney, as I say, thank you very much for coming on this. I maintain, and I think you've proven a unique perspective because of the challenges, the moving to an entirely different country, the setting up your own business the week before the pandemic hit, and you're still coming out the other side smiling. And you've certainly helped me a great deal. I suppose one last thing I want to ask, and I ask this to everyone, from your point of view, from your own struggles and your own challenges, do you have any advice for anyone that's watching that might be struggling, or that knows someone that might be struggling?
Yeah. I have been one of those people where I internalize everything, and I will say, talk to a friend, let it out, vent it out, of course. But I also understand from an empathetic perspective, that's a lot harder to do than it's easier to say. So I would say when you're in those moments where you are really feeling at rock bottom or super low, I think the key is to take the pressure off of yourself and look at it from the lenses. Is this thing that I'm worrying about, number one, is it life or death? Is that email going to make a difference in whether this business opens or shuts down? So that's the first thing, but also just to really ground yourself in, I need to give myself a break. I need to take the pressure off. What can I do? What can I achieve that's reasonable? And if you go, it's not life or death, and there's nothing that I can do to achieve a positive thing in this moment, then step away and shut it down no matter what that thing might do. Give yourself a break and come back to it. Everything is in our own head, and it sucks to say that, sucks to know that. But I once had a counselor tell me that, and I will never forget that. And that's something that runs, is like, is this coming from me, or is it genuinely coming from somewhere else? Because most of the time it is coming from you. And if it is, give yourself a break. Go outside, step away, do whatever you need to just like reframe your thinking to go, okay, I put a lot of pressure on that situation that I didn't need to. Breathe, and it will all be okay.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that's often the biggest thing, and it won't help everyone. But then the whole point of these, and what I say is, everyone is different. So everyone out there, if you want to talk to someone, feel free. If you need help, just helping yourself, stop. If those around you care about you, they will be happy to see you stop for a bit to help yourself. That's all I will say. If they genuinely care, and I've seen this in action with myself, if they genuinely care, they will want you to stop, to give yourself a break, to get back on track. And it is okay to do that. So
yes,
Courtney, thank you so much for joining us for this. My second transatlantic interview. I did a Brazilian one not long ago. You can catch that on our YouTube channel. One thing I'm going to do for this, Courtney, because it certainly does help me and it may help others, is at the end of this, I'm going to put the link to your Monday Motivation, to sign up to your Monday Motivation emails.
awesome.
Some of them are absolutely worth reading. Obviously, not everyone will hit home with you. That's the whole point of them. But some of them really do help you. So I'll do that, Courtney, because I think it's really useful. And thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, take care, everyone. And like I say, there'll be lots of charities listed at the end of this that you'll be able to seek help from if you need to. So, right, take care, everyone. I'll see you on the next one.